Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, February 10th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 201 days, the game against Michigan in 292 days. If you're planning your next event, you should make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck is serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at GratefulGriddleOH.com. We're talking Ohio State men's basketball today. Buckeyes went on the road on Sunday, put together what was a, scrappy performance. Looked like early in the second half, they might have overcome a slow start, and then Nebraska kind of woke back up and pulled away at the end. 79-71 loss for the Buckeyes. Joined by Kevin Noon of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Kevin, obviously there's a loss. There's going to be some negative stuff we got to talk about, but man, we got to start with Micah Parrish. What a performance that was from him.
Yeah, 30 points, 5 of 12 from 3, 4 boards. I mean, it was really a gutty performance by Parrish. It seems that maybe the leading scorer for Ohio State rotates a little bit. I mean, Micah Parrish played a lot of basketball through his career today, career high with all of that. Unfortunately for the Buckeyes, they needed maybe one more Micah Parrish out there. But, he put up a lot of shots. Ohio State put up 61 shots. He put up 21 of them because really he and another player we're going to talk about in a minute were the only two that really seemed to be connecting today.
Yeah, the Buckeyes, this is like one of those good news, bad news things. It's like they don't have a consistent leading scorer. It can kind of change game to game, and that can be a good thing because if someone has a bad game, it's not just, well, if this one guy can't make baskets, you're doomed. But also, they don't have a consistent every game kind of leading scorer. Bruce Thornton put up 31, I think, against Maryland earlier in the week. Had a quiet game today. We'll get into that in a little bit, but the other guy who did have quite a game was John Mobley, 21 points for him. The freshman, you see these spurts where he looks like he could just absolutely take the game over. He had one in the second half where they were right on the verge of falling out of things, and he basically single-handedly kept them in it for a couple minutes. But then he'll have these spurts where he goes quiet too, and I guess that's just sort of the nature of being a talented freshman.
Yeah, I mean, when you're a volume shooter, sometimes it's going down, sometimes it's not. For him today, for a large part of the day, 21 points, 7 of 15 from the floor, 5 of 10 from 3, it was going down. But, there are moments where, it does kind of get away from him and, he does go quiet and you do wonder, some freshmen try to put everything up. Some freshmen kind of wait to try and pick their shots. Mobley was hitting threes, from Omaha. I mean, he was, he had unlimited range today. It's part of his learning process. I think he's going to be a good piece for Ohio State moving forward, but, they only had 2 pieces that really were doing anything with the vast majority of their points coming from Parrish and Mobley. And ultimately, when I look back at this game, I'm just going to remember Ohio State not being able to get stops. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Ohio State had a 5-minute stretch in the second half where it saw its lead evaporate, and then once Nebraska kind of retook the lead, it was over at that point. But it just didn't seem like Ohio State was able to get enough stops on the other end.
Yeah, Nebraska in the first 10 minutes of the first half was 12 for 16 from the floor, and then they kind of went cold, and the Buckeye defense picked it up a little bit. And then there was a 14-2 Nebraska run where they kind of started to pull away again in the second half, and then there was another one late in the game, I think it might have been 11-0, something like that, where it felt like you couldn't get a stop. And, the part of that is probably like not great rim defense. That it feels like the front court in particular, the bigs were not very impactful on the offensive end of the floor, and the play in the paint is just kind of inconsistent right now, it feels like.
It is. Sean Stewart ends up fouling out of the game. He had 3 points. Aaron Bradshaw had 1 point. Nagovin had no points. I mean, it was just, really just not really getting much out of the bigs position. And just offensively, I mean, there were some altered shots defensively, but, just not enough for them to be able to shut down guys like Gary and Williams on the other side, who combined for 43 points.
And, when you just look at the box score really kind of tells you the story here. 40 to 26 points in the paint, Nebraska with the advantage. Nebraska 37-28 in terms of rebounds. Just all the little stuff They got to the line more. They hit a higher percentage of their free throws. It's all the little stuff that just kind of accumulates and adds up. And, that's, you're not going to win all of those stats in every game, but you got to win some of them. And then, this was a little bit of a quiet game for Bruce Thornton. Now, Bruce Thornton absolutely carried them to a monster win over Maryland. So he's allowed to have a little bit of a down game, but he had a little bit of a down game. And, that's kind of the downside of what we were talking about earlier in terms of, boy, you never know where the huge performance is going to come from. Bruce Thornton won the game on Wednesday night, 31 points, banked in that 3-pointer with 7 seconds to go. That was a game that really materially impacted their NCAA tournament chances. This one, whatever, you're going to lose on the road to teams that are similar to you. That's fine. Those teams are both projected as 10 seeds. But, this is definitely a team where when Bruce Thornton doesn't have a big game, they need someone else to step up. And the question is just kind of, okay, it was Micah Parrish and John Mobley, but that wasn't quite enough in this one.
Right. And, Bruce Thornton was leaving some shots short. I mean, he did hit some of his runners. He did have 4 makes. I think I was really paying attention for all 4 of them because I remember them all pretty vividly, but he was coming up short on a couple of his shots. Another thing, too, just about the offense in general, but, I'll use this talking about Thornton discussion for an entry point was up until the last 4 minutes of the game, Ohio State only had 4 or 5 assists. They ended the game with 9, but it just didn't look like they were very smooth in running their half-court offense. There was just a lot of times that guys were just going out there and kind of, dribbling around and creating their own shot, and obviously not getting an assist at that point. But, when you don't have that third option, I've said it through the years that you need to have 3 in a game really to be able to do it. Nebraska had 3 guys in double figures. Ohio State had 2. Bruce Thornton came up just short with just 9 points. There's been a hell of a lot more good than bad from Bruce this season, and we'll see with the 3-game homestand coming up here. I expect Bruce to have a really nice homestand.
Well, and the one name we haven't said yet on this show, and honestly, I probably should have said this earlier, is the name Devin Royal, because typically Devin Royal is one of those guys you can rely on to be at least a double-figure guy. He doesn't get to 20 all that often, but he's in that 12 to 15 range a lot. He only played 15 minutes because he looked like he had a real bad ankle injury in the first half and came back a little bit in the second half, but was clearly pretty impacted by that. The loss of Royal, I think that was one of the real defining factors of this game. And now the question is, okay, when can he come back and be anything close to 100%? Because with a team where you need to find your scoring from, pick 3 of these 5 guys kind of thing, which is sort of where they are right now, you can't really afford to lose one of those 4 or 5 guys.
Right. I mean, Royal has really just kind of been able to just elevate his game all season long. I mean, he doesn't break 20 a bunch, but, he'll have a very loud 16, a very loud 18 points in a game, make a lot of plays, make players around him look a lot better. And not having him was a major loss. And, now you come home and you have a day or two to get ready for your next game. They need him. They absolutely are going to need him during the upcoming stretch of games. And, he really is, part of that, pick 3 out of the 5. He's certainly in that 5. And I would sit there and say that I'm generally picking Devon Royal to have pretty big games. So, here's to the trainers and everybody else to get that thing iced or whatever needs to be done, and get him off of his feet and get that thing elevated and get him right, because if Ohio State wants to remain on the right side of the bubble, they're going to need Devon Royal down the stretch.
Well, and remaining on the right side of the bubble is going to start on Wednesday night. This is one they absolutely have to have. Washington is not very good. You get them at home. Then you got Michigan at home next Sunday. That's going to be, that's one where if you win it, boy, that's an enormous boost to your resume. And if you lose it, you kind of go, yeah, okay, it's understandable. And then you get Northwestern at home. Those are your next 3 games. You got to go 2-1 in those 3 games. If you go 2-1 in those 3 games, you're probably still comfortably in the field. If you go 3-0, boy, you're maybe moving yourself off of the 8, 9, or even 10 kind of line and looking at maybe a 7 seed. This is a time where it feels like Ohio State's kind of on that treadmill right now, where it's, you're kind of, okay, now they went from a 10 seed to a 9 seed. Up now they're back to a 10 seed. And then maybe if you get a big win, you might be up to an 8 seed, and then you might be back to a 10 seed with another loss. They're kind of just in that kind of range right now where you're not on the verge of having to go play in Dayton on Tuesday. You'd like to avoid that if you can. You'd like to avoid, obviously, falling completely out of the tournament. But this is a team that feels like it's kind of right in that, not completely comfortably in, but still probably in most of the projections. But man, they got to win Wednesday night to keep this thing kind of rolling in the right direction.
Yeah, I go to Bracket Matrix all the time, and I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days, but last time I looked, they were on like 90 of 92 brackets, and like the 2 that weren't updated were ones that they weren't in on that hadn't been updated in a couple of days. Obviously we won't see any movement until tomorrow based on as people release new brackets. I'm willing to bet people are going to be watching the Super Bowl, so maybe things will be slow there. But yeah, 2-1 is certainly the line. If you go 1-2 or worse, things are going to be a little uncomfortable down the stretch. But these are all, I think they're all very winnable games. I know Michigan certainly is probably the toughest of the 3 of them for a multitude of reasons. Going to get to see a former player come back to town, everything else. But Ohio State needs to be playing its best basketball at that point, because you got that West Coast trip coming up with games to USC and UCLA on the back end of this 3-game series. And we just know what traveling cross country can do sometimes.
Yeah, just saw the Ohio State women's basketball team go cross country for that LA double dip, and they lost both ends. Now, those are both top 7 teams nationally, so that's sort of understandable. But yeah, it is. You got to win your home games, and then you hope you steal one every once in a while on the road, and that's probably enough to get you in. But we will see what they can do starting Wednesday night. We'll be there for that game. Buckeyes and Washington Huskies have plenty of basketball talk this week. Also going to have plenty of football talk this week, as well as we sort of turn the page into spring football. Buckeyes will be doing those winter workouts and getting ready for spring ball. Going to be plenty to talk about at BuckeyeHuddle.com this week. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there as well. All to make you a smarter football fan and probably also basketball fan. That's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.